The guitar I've ever played. Just got a good sound.
At 92, Willie Nelson has endured more heartbreak than most people could survive. He's buried friends, lost fortunes, and watched his dreams burn to nothing.
One person can't change the world, but one person carrying a message can change.
Now, in what might be his final chapter, he's revealing something that shocks everyone who hears it. When asked about death, Willie doesn't flinch. His response cuts through decades of pretense with brutal honesty. The answer lies buried in a lifetime of unimaginable pain, crushing defeats, and losses that would break lesser men. This isn't the sanitized version of Willie Nelson's story. This is the raw truth about what happens when life strips away everything you thought mattered. It's about a man who learned that sometimes the greatest courage isn't fighting to live, but accepting when it's time to let go. The journey to this moment began long before Willie became a household name. It started in the dust and desperation of Depression-era Texas, where a young boy learned his first brutal lesson about abandonment. Willie Hugh Nelson entered this world on April 29, 1933 in Abbott, Texas. But from his earliest memories, the world seemed determined to teach him that nothing lasts forever. His parents, Merle and Ira Nelson, had dreams bigger than their small town could contain. When those dreams called them elsewhere, they made a decision that would shape Willie's entire worldview. At just 6 years old, Willie watched his mother walk away. She left him and his sister Bobby with their grandparents, promising to return when times got better. Those better times never came. His father remarried and started a new life, leaving Willie to wonder what he'd done wrong, why he wasn't worth staying for. The abandonment cut deep, creating wounds that would never fully heal. Willie and his grandparents, William and Nancy Smothers, did their best to fill the void. They taught him music, gave him his first guitar when he was 6, but even their love couldn't erase the fundamental question that haunted him. Why wasn't he enough to make his parents stay? During scorching Texas summers, Willie worked the cotton fields alongside migrant workers. His small hands would bleed from picking cotton under the merciless sun. The work was backbreaking for a grown man, devastating for a child. But it taught Willie something valuable about endurance, about pushing through pain when giving up seemed easier.
The young boy found solace in music, writing his first song at age 7. It was crude, simple, but it gave voice to feelings he couldn't express any other way. When he joined his first band at 10, he discovered something powerful. On stage, the abandonment didn't matter. The crowd accepted him, wanted him there. But even as music became his refuge, the scars of abandonment remained. Willie learned early that people leave, that promises break, that counting on anyone but yourself was dangerous. This harsh lesson would serve him well in the brutal music industry. But it also made him understand something most people never grasp, that attachment to anything, even life itself, could become a prison. By the early 1960s, Willie Nelson had found love, or what he thought was love. He'd married Martha Matthews, and they'd built what looked like a perfect life. 3 beautiful children filled their home with laughter. Willie was chasing his dream in Nashville, writing songs that would become classics. But dreams don't pay bills. While his songs were being recorded by major stars, Willie himself was struggling to make ends meet. He worked odd jobs, sold encyclopedias door to door, pumped gas, anything to keep food on the table. The man who would become a multi-millionaire was sleeping on friends' couches and counting pennies for groceries. Martha grew tired of the constant struggle. The fights started small, but they grew louder, meaner, more frequent. Willie would come home from another failed audition to find Martha's resentment waiting like a loaded gun. The pressure crushed something inside Willie. He started drinking heavily, drowning his failures in whiskey and self-pity. Martha's disappointment became a mirror, showing him everything he'd failed to become. One particularly brutal winter night, Willie hit rock bottom. The rejection letters were piling up, the bills were overdue, and Martha had said things that cut deeper than any knife. Willie stumbled out into the freezing Nashville streets, so drunk he could barely stand. In his darkest moment, he made a decision that still haunts him. He lay down in the middle of the street, hoping a car would end the pain. The asphalt was like ice against his back, and Willie closed his eyes, waiting for headlights to bring relief. Cars swerved around him, drivers shouting curses, but none delivered the peace he craved. He lay there for what felt like hours, understanding for the first time that sometimes the most desperate act is also the most cowardly. When he finally dragged himself home, Martha was waiting, but instead of comfort, she offered ultimatums. The marriage was over in everything but name. He'd learned another brutal lesson, that even love could become a weapon, that the people closest to you could inflict the deepest wounds. December 25, 1991 should have been a day of celebration for the Nelson family. Christmas morning, presents under the tree, grandchildren running through the house with new toys. Instead, it became the day that would haunt Willie for
Nelson for the rest of his life. Billy Nelson, Willie's eldest son, had been struggling for years. Being Willie Nelson's son in Texas was like carrying a weight that grew heavier every day. Everywhere Billy went, people expected him to be a reflection of his famous father. But Billy was fighting demons that fame couldn't touch. Depression had wrapped itself around Billy like a snake, squeezing tighter every year. Willie's sister Bobby later revealed how close the family was that Christmas morning. They'd been planning to record a gospel album together, Billy and Willie sharing their faith and their music. But Billy had already made his decision. The pain had become too much, the darkness too complete. On Christmas Day, while families across America were unwrapping presents and sharing meals, Billy Nelson chose to end his story. He was 33 years old. The phone call came in the afternoon. Willie was getting ready for another Christmas celebration when the words hit him like a physical blow. His firstborn son, the boy who'd carried his name and his hopes, was gone. Not from an accident, not from illness, but from a decision that Willie couldn't understand or undo. The funeral was a nightmare of whispered conversations and careful silences. People spoke in hushed tones about Billy's struggles, about the pressure of being Willie Nelson's son, about signs they should have seen. But Billy sat through it all in stunned silence, replaying every conversation, every missed opportunity to say the right thing. Bobby Nelson watched her brother crumble in ways she'd never seen. They'd been through everything together, but this loss was different. This wasn't something you could write a song about or play your way through. This was the kind of pain that changes a person forever. Willie and Bobby never really talked about Billy's death, not in the way people expected. Instead, they grew closer in their silence, understanding each other's pain without words. The death of his son taught Willie something terrible and profound about the nature of suffering. He realized that some pain doesn't make you stronger, it just makes you different. Some losses don't heal, they just become part of who you are. And sometimes the greatest act of love is understanding why someone might choose to leave. While Willie Nelson was still reeling from the loss of his son, another catastrophe was quietly building. In 1990, IRS agents showed up at Willie's properties with seizure notices. The number was staggering, $32 million in unpaid taxes. It was one of the largest tax bills in American history. The seizure was swift and merciless. IRS agents took everything: his gold records that represented decades of success, his piano where he'd written some of his greatest songs, his beloved ranch in Texas. They even took his personal belongings, treating Willie Nelson like a common criminal instead of a cultural icon. Friends and advisors told Willie to declare bankruptcy, to use the legal system to escape the debt and start over. But Willie refused. He said he'd never do a bankruptcy where the people he owed got screwed out of their money. Instead, Willie chose the harder path. He would pay every penny, even if it took the rest of his life. He released an album called The IRS Tapes, Who Buy My Memories, with all proceeds going directly to the government. He toured relentlessly, playing small venues and county fairs, accepting any paying gig to chip away at the impossible debt. The irony wasn't lost on Willie. The man who'd sung about freedom and living life on his own terms was now essentially a slave to the federal government. But Willie kept playing, kept singing, kept moving forward with determination that amazed everyone who knew him. By 1993, Willie had settled his debt with the IRS, paying every penny through sheer determination. But the experience left him with a profound understanding of how quickly everything can disappear. Willie Nelson had always been different from other country stars, but his willingness to take controversial stands would make him enemies in an industry that preferred its heroes predictable. In the late 1960s, when racial tensions were at their peak and country music was largely segregated, Willie did something that shocked audiences across the South. During a concert in Texas, Willie kissed black country singer Charley Pride on the lips. It was a deliberate act of defiance, a statement that friendship and respect transcended color. The audience erupted in anger, but Willie stood his ground. The backlash was immediate and severe. Radio stations refused to play his records. Concert venues canceled bookings, but Willie didn't apologize or back down. His political activism became even more pronounced as he aged. While most country stars stayed safely conservative, Willie endorsed liberal candidates. He played benefit concerts for Democrats, spoke out against wars, and used his music to promote peace. Conservative fans felt betrayed. Perhaps most controversially, Willie became one of the most prominent advocates for marijuana legalization. Long before it became socially acceptable, Willie was open about his cannabis use. He was arrested multiple times for possession, faced jail time, but never wavered in his belief that marijuana should be legal. In 2018, Willie released "Vote Them Out" during a heated election season. The song divided his fanbase down party lines, with some fans burning his albums and others celebrating his courage. Through all the controversy, Willie maintained a simple philosophy. He would rather be honest and hated than popular and fake. For a man who'd built his career on his voice, Willie Nelson's relationship with his lungs became a decades-long battle that nearly killed him multiple times. In 1981, while swimming in Hawaii, Willie's left lung collapsed. The pain was excruciating, and he was rushed to the hospital struggling to breathe. Years of cigarette smoking, combined with increasing marijuana use, were taking a devastating toll. Willie developed emphysema, making every breath a struggle. Pneumonia became a recurring nightmare, striking Willie 4 or 5 times over the years. By 2015, Willie's condition had deteriorated so badly that he underwent stem cell surgery, an experimental procedure where doctors took stem cells from other parts of his body and injected them into his damaged lungs. The surgery required Willie to cancel tours, disappointing thousands of fans. But Willie's most terrifying health battle came in 2022, when he was nearly 90. COVID-19 found its way to Willie's tour bus. For a man with severely compromised lungs, the disease was potentially a death sentence. Annie D'Angelo, Willie's 4th wife, sprang into action when Willie woke up struggling to breathe. She immediately started every treatment available. For days, Willie's life hung in the balance. Slowly, incredibly, Willie began to recover. The lung battles taught Willie something crucial about the relationship between life and death. He learned that dying isn't always dramatic or meaningful. Sometimes it's just running out of breath. He'd already experienced what dying feels like, and he's learned that death isn't the enemy, suffering is. In the world of country music legends, Willie Nelson has become something rare and sobering: the last man standing. The Highwaymen, the supergroup that defined outlaw country, once consisted of 4 giants: Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Kris Kristofferson. Now Willie sits alone with their memories, the sole survivor of a brotherhood that once seemed indestructible. Johnny Cash died in 2003, leaving a hole in country music that could never be filled. Waylon Jennings followed in 2002. The most recent loss came in September 2024, when Kris Kristofferson passed away at 88. Standing at these funerals, Willie began to understand something profound about survival. Being the last one left isn't a victory, it's a burden. But watching his friends die also taught Willie about dignity in departure. Each of the highwaymen faced death in their own way, but all with acceptance that comes from living full lives. They didn't rage against the dying of the light. They embraced it as part of the natural order. At 92, Willie Nelson has earned something most people never achieve: complete honesty about life and death. His brutal acceptance of mortality isn't born from depression or defeat. It comes from a lifetime of experiences that stripped away every illusion about what really matters. He's been abandoned, betrayed, bankrupted, and broken. He's buried his son, lost his fortune, and watched his body slowly fail. Yet somehow, through all of it, he's found peace. Willie's revelation about not fearing death makes perfect sense when you understand his journey. He's learned that the things we cling to most desperately, money, fame, even life itself, are temporary gifts that will eventually be taken away.
The man who once laid in a Nashville street hoping for cars to end his pain now faces death with calm certainty, not because he wants to die, but because he's no longer afraid to live. Willie's brutal honesty about wanting it to end isn't about giving up. It's about understanding that endings are just as natural as beginnings. His acceptance teaches us something profound about courage. The bravest thing isn't fighting death, it's living fully while knowing death is coming. Willie Nelson has done that, creating music that will outlive him, touching lives across generations, and showing us that a life lived authentically is worth celebrating beginning to end. As Willie continues to tour and record, he's not running from death, he's dancing with it. Every performance could be his last, every song a farewell, every moment a gift. He's learned the secret that eludes most of us, that the only way to truly live is to make peace with dying. Willie Nelson's story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, we can find light. And that acceptance isn't surrender, it's wisdom. The red-headed stranger has taught us his final lesson.